Welcome to our ongoing discussions for the second half of the course on the metaphysical side of the philosophy of religion. Note that when we talked about the scope fallacy, there was nothing in our discussion that adverted to the language of the past that looks like it's essential to the problem here. It's not that God knows, but that he knows in advance what you're going to do. It's not that he has knowledge that's contemporaneous with your actions. It's that this is something about the past. So another form of argument that tries to develop without committing the modal fallacy looks like it ought to be focusing on something about the past. And the reason that's important is because the past is something that we can't change. So let's jump back in to the discussion and see if there's a way of developing an argument that actually focuses on the pastness element that seems like it ought to be crucial in our discussion. We can do this by focusing on an argument that connects the freedom-foreknowledge problem with other arguments for fatalism that we might call logical arguments rather than theological arguments for fatalism. Both of these kinds of arguments are arguments that focus on features of the past and try to show that the future can't be open. It can't be up to us in any sense at all, given certain facts about the past. So that's where we turn next. There are lots of arguments that one might cite for fatalism. And there's one in ancient Greek thought that we don't quite know what the argument is. It's referred to as the master argument for fatalism, but we don't have any written record of what this master argument is. Let's use Aristotle's example. Aristotle liked to put this in the form of an argument about whether there will be a sea battle tomorrow or not. Now notice, when we think of it that way, we are thinking in terms of things that human beings have control over. In general, whether there's a sea battle or not tomorrow will be in part a function of what the people involved in the decision-making decide. If they decide to start a battle, then there'll be a battle. If they decide to turn around and go away in opposite directions, there won't be a sea battle. So this is one of those things. For Augustine, it was a question about sinning. For Maimonides, it was a question about whether a person would turn out to be good or bad. For Aristotle, it's just about sea battles or any kind of voluntary interaction between human beings. So, suppose there will be a sea battle tomorrow. Suppose you agree it is now true that there will be a sea battle tomorrow. It'd be very surprising for you to say there will be a sea battle tomorrow, but it's not now true that there will be a sea battle tomorrow. There are fancy and perhaps sophistical accounts of how truth works, so that you could say such a thing, or at least it could be true, but we're not going to pursue those at this point. Let's just say there will be a sea battle tomorrow. Take that as an assumption. So from that, we can get, it's now true that there will be a sea battle tomorrow. It was true yesterday that there will be a sea battle tomorrow. It's always been true that there will be a sea battle tomorrow. All right, now here's how the argument for logical fatalism develops from this starting point. Instead of just relying on where the necessity operator goes, the argument for logical fatalism says there's a certain kind of necessity involved in claims about the past. So in deciding where the necessity operator goes, you need to check to see where the necessity resides that we're talking about. So when you look at the past, anything in the past, Aristotle said not even the gods can change the past. So the past is unavoidable, it's necessary, it's unchangeable. It has a kind of necessity to it. So assume that the past is necessary. Now, what we're after is a kind of necessity that would undermine free choice, voluntary choice, that would generate the kind of compulsion that Maimonides was worried about. For that, we need a bridge principle. So let's call the necessity of the past accidental necessity, because that's what it was called in the Middle Ages. Let's call the kind of necessity that makes your behavior unavoidable, makes it be a matter of compulsion, makes it be involuntary. Let's call that unavoidability necessity. There's also one other kind of necessity, which is just the standard logical or metaphysical necessity. So if it was always the case in the past that there will be a sea battle tomorrow, then there will be a sea battle tomorrow. Now, take that and put a box operator, put a necessity operator on it with wide scope. It's a necessary truth that if it's always been the case that it will be that P tomorrow, then it will be that P tomorrow. The bridge principle is going to use that wide scope metaphysical necessity to link accidental necessity with unavoidability necessity. Here's the principle. If something is accidentally necessary and that claim that's accidentally necessary entails, metaphysically, some other claim about what a free individual, about what a human being will or won't do, then that behavior by that individual has unavoidability necessity. Now notice there's no sentence in there, there's no premise that can be given two different scope readings where one of them is plausible and one of them you might want to reject in order to keep from endorsing fatalism. It's a more subtle argument. It appeals to the necessity of the past, and that's playing the key role. Now the question is, should Maimonides and Augustine have been worried about logical fatalism instead of theological fatalism? Perhaps so, but maybe there's a way to pull the two apart. We will see more about that when we talk further about this issue next time.